Today we're going to talk a little bit more about segregation in the United States. If we remember, during Reconstruction, which lasted from 1865 to 1877, it was a relatively good time for African Americans in the South. The Northern government had forced the South to accept laws and amendments that gave African Americans rights, like the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment and the Civil Rights Act of 1866. And that same Civil Rights Act had let the Army stay in the South to enforce these laws. But with the election of 1876, there was a compromise, remember. Rutherford B. Hayes, the Republican, would end up being president, but in exchange, he would have to remove the Army from the South. And when he removed the Army from the South, there was no one forcing the South to follow the rules to give African American rights. And a system is created called segregation. We talked about how segregation is the separation of races. It did occur everywhere in the U.S., but it was much, much worse in the South. And it especially took place in schools and other public facilities, but many private facilities were segregated as well. Remember our next vocabulary words, Jim Crow laws and black codes. Those are both examples of laws that made segregation legal. And these are examples of Jim Crow laws from Virginia. So remember, 60, 70 years ago, this would have been the law in Yorktown. In movie theaters, every person operating any public hall, theater, opera house, motion picture show, or any place of public entertainment or public assemblage which is attended by both white and colored persons shall separate the white race and the colored race, and shall set apart and designate certain seats therein to be occupied by white persons, and a portion thereof, or certain seats therein, to be occupied by colored persons. The Narrow was an old theater in Norfolk. It's still around, and if you go there, you can see there's a balcony. And the balcony used to be for African Americans, and the whites could sit up front. On railroads, the conductors or managers on all such railroads shall have power, and are hereby required to assign to each white or colored passenger his or her respective car, coach, or compartment. If the passenger fails to disclose his race, the conductor and managers, acting in good faith, shall be the sole judges of his race. So these are primary sources. These are the actual laws, word for word, that told us what segregation was like. We are going to look at some pictures that are also primary sources about segregation. Make sure you complete the activity that goes along with these pictures. If you would like to look at a picture a little bit closer, you can always just pause your video. Make sure we look at this part right here. And in the last one, I've chosen these two pictures so you can compare them.